Hey everybody, happy Friday. Wanted to talk this week about why I keep emphasizing things like talking about the BCBA position, for example. I always reference it as being a case management position. I do a lot, like with this blog, on talking about BCBAs, their personal skills, their time management skills, using some mental models to get through your day, um, your personal life, keeping that in order, things like that. And there's a lot of us that love to nerd out over ABA stuff, and I talk about that nerd out stuff frequently as well. But I think I'm a little heavy on the case management aspect and talking about skills the BCBAs need to nurture and develop to do well with a caseload. And some of these skills are non-clinical skills. They're more like professionalism skills. They're interpersonal skills, like, again, time management skills. So all that to say, all that to ask, why do I keep going back to that? And so one of the things that I think, this is more of a prediction on my part, as I watch the world of technology develop, is that we're going to see clinical decision making get easier. I don't like the idea of AI necessarily making all of our clinical decisions for us, but I like the idea of AI and the technology that is available to us to help us make the right clinical decision, or at least get us to the right clinical decision faster, or give us options, give us better clinical content while we're sitting in a consultation with a kiddo. I see the future of being a BCBA. I think it's going to involve like a BCBA sitting in a consult, for example, in a consultation, and having access to a wealth of data and a wealth of information to help them make their clinical decisions easier. And more so than now, because really all we have now is like, okay, maybe you did some CEU events, right? Maybe you have in a Google Drive folder somewhere a nicely curated library for yourself of materials you've used in the past or somebody else has given you. Maybe you have access to scholarly articles and everything, and you also have access to PDF copies of certain journal articles. That's all well and good, but that's what you have right now. And it's taken years for a lot of BCBAs to just, get to that point where they have all those things. And so what really helps BCBAs make good clinical decisions right now is the years they put in, if that makes sense. Like the more time you spend being a BCBA, the more experiences you have, the more different kinds of clients you've seen. And so you've developed a larger library of goals, a larger library of resources, a larger library of journal articles, and you've had the ability to maybe interact with all of those things. And so your clinical decisions have gotten easier. But with the advent of AI, there's going to be, in my opinion, resources available where you just log in and you can ask the AI questions and it can get you to those resources faster, or it can offer several different options, or it might even ask you some questions so you can kind of hone in on maybe what you'd like to do. Maybe it doesn't make the clinical decision for you. In fact, it wouldn't. You would be the one implementing the programs for the kiddos. But that AI, if you have any experience with ChatGPT, you kind of know what I mean, will bring certain relevant information, certain relevant resources, journal articles, potential programming ideas and protocols to your attention faster. So it's right there. And so you can consider it and then make a decision faster. So all that is to say that your clinical decision making is not only probably going to get better, but it's going to be quicker. And also new BCBAs are going to have the opportunity to make better decisions clinically than probably we did back in the day when we first started, because for them, they can get to that information a lot more quickly. So with this advent, I think clinical decision making is going to get easier. So if you think about your consultation that you're going to do with a kiddo, where you're sitting there on your laptop and trying to come up with goals, maybe you're reading through journal articles. All in all, you're probably going to have to do a lot less of that in the years to come. And so your consultation, which originally you might have spent maybe a couple hours if you're, this kiddo's a real head scratcher, looking up clinical information, trying to make a clinical decision, trying to assess and everything like that, you're going to spend it doing different things. So what's left over after the clinical decision making gets easier for everybody? What's left over if the significant portion of your consult that was formerly taken up by scratching your head about which program to implement or which tweak to make on the behavior plan, like what's left over after all that if that's shrunken down or it's removed altogether? And what's left over is time management, interpersonal skills, especially interpersonal skills, and overall management of the case. So the BCBA's job with that, because nothing exists in a vacuum, with the clinical decision making being made easier, it becomes more imperative that a BCBA acts as a case manager, especially in terms of relationships. And this is a big thing for me because relationships are so important. And so a lot of your consultation in the years to come will be quickly, maybe, or more easily selecting the program you want to implement, but then teaching the RBT and spending a lot of time teaching the RBT, or testing the program with the kiddo, or working with the parent on that program, for example. And so what's left over after all of this is that interpersonal piece, that training piece, that coaching piece that you might do with the RBT or the parent, but also the relationship building with you and the child, things like that. And so to answer the question, this is where we started. Why do I place so much emphasis on case management? Well, because management will be what is left over, especially once we move in to this new phase of ABA and technology and ABA. Management and interpersonal relationships, coaching, training, things like that are going to be what's left over when a lot of our clinical decision making is taking off the table. And not to expand on that, I'm not saying clinical decision making is taken off the table. It's just the time that we spend in clinical decision making potentially could reduce. And if that's the case, you're going to be managing, and in theory, we're not just going to be sitting there watching the RBT do things with the kiddo and everything like that and run programs. We're going to be, in theory, we should at least be actively engaged with them, teaching them, coaching them, turning them into a better RBT, because that is what's going to be left over. That's the big piece to this. So this is why I say that. This is why I say look at case management, because what are you going to do if things get easier for you clinically? You're going to be in a spot, you're going to try to motivate staff, you're going to try to motivate RBTs, you're going to coach, you're going to train, you're going to work on your relationships, and you're going to work on your how you interact with your people in those consultations. And so, with all of that in mind, it demands us to be better at management wise, because we're actually getting something maybe removed from our schedule. We're getting more time put back in our consultations, put back in our days. And so that's where all of this comes from. It comes from the standpoint that technology is going to make our job easier, in the years to come. And so we have to account then, more so than we ever have before, the need for the human aspect, because there always is a need. In fact, the need for that human aspect trumps everything else. And so that's what's left in that vacuum. That's what's left over. So that's what I wanted to talk about this week. That's why I talk about case management so much. That's why I talk about time management. That's why I talk about relationship management and documentation management. And I think it behooves all of us to pay close attention to where our skill set is at with that, and how well we are developing our skills in relation to those things, in relation to our professionalism, and in relation to our managerial skills. So happy Friday. That's my message for this week.